Senor.
Yeah.
How-
So, we're here. Another week
here.
in Drunken Public. I'm hanging with
Dude.
Allan. Salud. Thanks for coming.
Salud, Senor. Cheers. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, side note. Also, side note. I want to ask you about that.
Please.
But so, guys, this is Allan,
Senor.
the owner of I Know Nothing About Beer podcast. But this man's a liar. But it's a clever play on words because it's not that you don't know anything about beer. It's about people who don't know anything about beer.
So I'll preface this by saying this. I love beer and I have a passion for it, and I think one of the things that defines a passion is that the more you find out about it, the less you know about it.
Exactly.
And in a
It's called
previous
wisdom.
it's one of those things where the more as I started to learn how to play guitar, and that's a whole other life, other life of mine. But the more that I learned about the guitar, the more I learned and I read, the more I learned there was so much more to explore about it.
Yeah.
As I got into beer, less of I enjoy drinking it, not that I still don't enjoy drinking it, but the more that I found out how it's made, the history, everything that surrounds beer culture, the more I found out I had more questions about it and wanted to dig deeper. So yes, my podcast is I Know Nothing About Beer, and I constantly feel like I know less about beer the more I know about beer. And it's meant to be for anyone that has no idea about beer.
Yeah.
That wants to get that introduction that they're either too scared to ask about or don't have someone to already kind of mentor them into it.
Yes.
And so that's what my podcast is really for. Now, if you are a veteran of the craft beer scene, I think there's still things to talk about and that you can take away from it. Because while my podcast does have surface level stuff, I do try to get a little deeper into the weeds with whomever I'm talking with.
I want to make a correction on that. My podcast is surface level about beer because, same with you, I'm more of a drinker prior to doing the podcast, and I was never into beer. But what I fell in love with was the beer culture. Especially what I always say, the Dallas is the best beer community, and that's what I fell in love with. The beer is just a plus, a beautiful positive that I am also enjoying.
I get
and
that.
the passion people have.
I get that.
So even though we are called Dallas Beer Talk, we're very surface level because I enjoy the people behind it.
And I definitely I get that from your podcast and the people that you talk to, because yes, you guys do talk about beer, but it's also the everything about Dallas beer. And I say Dallas mean DFW because you talk to everybody all around.
Exactly. I do the same thing, but yours, even though you say it's surface level, you do put some things like bottle share, the difference between California and Texas craft beer.
Talked about that a little bit.
What I do enjoy is that you also interview people, which delves deep into people's passion about beer.
Yeah.
So it's not 100% what I call surface level, but it definitely delves deeper, but it also educates along the way. Because the bottle share one was for people who don't know what a bottle share is.
Yeah.
Because when I got thrown into beer, maybe the same with you when you got thrown into it, you're like, well, let's go to a bottle share. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, well, we just trade beers or drink beers there. Like, what do I bring? No one ever tells you what to do. You just got to go show up.
And the first time that I literally think is the first time you go to a bottle share, you'll never think whatever you bring is good enough.
Same here.
And you're just freaked out about it. You're like, I just hope I don't get made fun of.
Yeah.
And I think that's totally normal. I think that's also normal when anybody starts to get introduced to a new subculture.
That is really true. That's a really weird poetic way. This is definitely a subculture.
I would call this kind of a subculture. And the way that punk is a subculture, craft beer has a subculture around it. It has rules. It has either unspoken or spoken. There's something about craft beer, and I'll say there's a level of craft beer that is just getting to know what it is.
Yeah.
And then there's a level of getting into the community and what it means to be part of the community and how much you want to give to or take away from. Because you can take away from the community all you want.
Yeah,
I mean, coming
100%.
to the breweries like this here at Turning Point, like you can get in here, talk to people, and enjoy the beer, take that home, tell everybody you want about it. That's great. But then giving back into the community, doing bottle shares, getting people more into beer.
Exactly.
Just learning. I even feel like learning about beer is giving back to the community, because then you have something more to share with people. Yeah.
No, 100%. Listen, I never talked to me 2.5 years ago prior to me and my co-host starting this drink show, because it was just a drinking show in the beginning.
Yeah.
The name Dallas Beer Talk was just a play on words because the guy, my co-host, was the beer guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, I don't know what to name it. Because before him, and when I invited him and my other co-host on, when I invited them on, it was it's the hater hour. Me and my friends used to hate on everything. It was a dumb drunk show too.
I think I may remember a few of those episodes.
Yeah.
I've gone back. Yeah.
So it was just a hate show, not a hateful show, but a playful jab at France, a playful jab at subculture.
You couldn't tell at all that you were from New York.
Not at all, not at all. But then when I fell in love with the guys from Petty Colas and then meeting the brewers and people's passion, really changes it.
Yeah.
So I want to give back as showing it why I love it. Same thing with Turning Point. These guys here are fucking phenomenal.
They are. I love the crew here. They're so good to the craft beer community. They know how to give back.
And they not see the thing about it. They have play on words too. The lightest beer. They had that for a while.
Lightest beer that you know. Yeah. They have,
And it's a playful because a lot of people come. They don't know about craft beer, even though it's booming. United States wide. The craft beer
it
is
has
booming.
a long way to go, especially in Texas.
No, it does definitely. Even though people say it's booming, it still hasn't made its transition to main culture. It's still a subculture of people drinking.
Yeah.
So when people come in here in the neighborhood, because this is in a neighborhood area, they're like, oh, what's the lightest beer you have? Instead of them stalking at the community, they're like, okay, this is the lightest beer we make. Not to jab at people. It's playful for people like me and you come in and like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
And it's also like, here, this is literally the lightest beer.
No. If you have no idea what this place is, you just know they have beer.
Yeah.
And you have not had a coconut, whatever this is, German chocolate cake stout. If you look at that and go, what in the world? Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
But if you look at that and your eyes glaze over, and you see the lightest beer we have, you're like, yes, that one. I will start with that one.
Yeah. And this is why I think they're the best, because they also, if you have questions, and a lot of, not just Turning Point, but a lot of brewers, a lot of bartenders at breweries, well, willing to answer your questions.
Yeah.
Because they have a passion to give back to the community, as well as you have a want to consume.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty and the transition that we have here.
I really think that, because I was thinking about this the last couple of days, in the craft beer scene here in DFW specifically, as where I live and have lived for the last, I think it's 4 years now, almost 5. I think that if you are getting into craft beer, this is an amazing time.
Yeah.
Because you can literally get to know most of the people in the scene in about a year.
Yeah. Most of the main people, main players.
I mean, not main players, but even like you can still get to know Michael Pedicolis. You can meet him. You know,
he's always at the brewery.
Yeah, he's always at the brewery. I mean, you can come to Turning Point here, talk to the brewers, talk to the guys. I'm not saying you're going to be able to have a 2-hour conversation, but
you can introduce yourself.
You can introduce yourself. You can get to know a lot of the people in the scene now.
1,000%.
Because it's only going to grow.
1,000%.
I think that, because I hear people talk about the bubble a lot.
We talk about it. So what is your take on the craft beer bubble? Because I have my opinion on it, and I want to hear yours first before I jump in.
Okay, so here's my thought. I don't think that we're fully saturated. Okay?
Not yet. Nope.
I think that what it really is going to take is people finding their niche. I think that as long as people are making good beer in their niche, that a brewery will be able to survive. Turning Point, they just make they make really good beer, and I'm glad they do that, and they're set, and they've got stuff that they're experimenting with, but they're also the first brewery, really, in my opinion, to start really hitting the New England craft beer, the hazy bro IPAs, whatever you want to call them, but they have a niche in our community of those. Yeah. They're the first. They've done it very well, and I think that by establishing that, they've got a place set for them.
Exactly.
As long as they keep making good beer and keep interacting and giving back to the craft beer community the way they are. Now, if you have a brewery that just does a core 4 and doesn't expand and doesn't try to push their quality, their experimenting, and giving back to the community, I think it'll be harder for them to survive if they're just doing an IPA, blonde, stout, and the one beer that the brewery actually wants to make.
I think you can. I agree with everything, but I think for me, my only difference between it, have you had a chance to go to Europe yet?
Yeah.
So especially in like Reykjavik or in like England itself, which I haven't been to England yet, the norm is that every neighborhood has its own pub.
Yes.
That make beer there in their own pub.
Yeah.
That's saturation.
That is also a culture that has grown up in knowing beer is. That's also culture growing up knowing that a pub is a place for the family. It's a place for everyone. We
It's
don't
a
have
local
that
place.
yet. Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't have that yet in Texas.
And it won't be that for a very long time because how spread out Texas is.
Yeah.
But what I mean by that saturation, because that's not a bad thing. When you open a pub, and when you grow up in England, you want to open a pub.
Yep.
Your expectation is I'm gonna open a pub. It may not do anything significant ever in life, but it's my pub,
Yep.
and I want to run that pub.
Yep.
The problem with craft beer culture now is the people coming in just for money, and you can hear it with the way they talk and the way they produce themselves.
I get
They
you.
coming in to make money. Now, in the long term, we'll see if they'll survive. Maybe they have great marketing and survive. Maybe they have a really hard advertising team pushing for them to be in bigger markets. Maybe football stadiums. That's okay.
Yeah.
But what I think is the people who will survive in the long term is people who have passion to make beer because they want to make the beer, not for financial gain.
And I would not disagree with that at all. I think that when you start talking about England,
Or Germany, you could
or
go
Germany.
or Australia.
So I don't know if you know this. I lived in Germany.
So perfect. We can start at Germany. Yeah.
Yeah. I lived in Germany as a student when I was in college. Didn't really drink a lot because there were
Okay.
two types of people that were in my program: people that did not drink, or people that got totally wasted. And I didn't care to get totally wasted.
Totally waste is hard. It's hard to recover.
I just don't do it.
Yeah.
I actually, and I went to a very, some people at the time it was much more conservative. Now it's not as conservative. Christian college, Pepperdine. I'll say go Waves.
Hey,
I
good.
love my school, but there were people that either got wasted or that like thought alcohol was a sin, and I was in the middle. And I didn't have anybody to like go hang out with, and not that I didn't like, I didn't have a taste for beer yet. So I didn't explore much in that realm. Now, I did find out I liked wine in Italy, and that was, that could
It's hard
set
not
you
to
over.
drink wine. That's all
No.
that's all they drink.
No, and I remember I was like, I could spend €3 on a glass of water or €5 on a half liter of wine. And I was like, done.
Wine
Yeah,
all day.
Yeah. But I think that culture has grown up knowing that alcohol is not something separate from a meal as
Yeah.
well. It's natural to go, well, what do you have? A meal and a beer, a meal and a wine. I think once America / and Texas will be a little far behind on this.
Well, the Bible Belt would be harder.
Yeah, Bible Belt's a little harder all around.
Yeah.
But it takes a cultural shift to go from alcohol is something that we have to alcohol is something that is what we do. And
But I think it's for us. That's always going to be separate because that's American culture. Because drinking is perfectly fine in American culture, but it's always been considered separate.
yeah,
You hear parents all the time. I don't drink in front of my kids.
Yeah.
Or I have the kids at the house, or no liquor at the house.
and
There's no disrespect to that, but
No,
that's
no.
perfectly fine.
yeah. But I think that until it changes, it's going to be hard to have a culture where it's like England, where
Yeah.
there's a brewery and there's a brewery on so many different corners because people go, well, that's my pub. That's where I not only go after work to have a pint, but I can go there for dinner with my family, no problem.
See, I think it's gonna be different for us. I never pointed out England to think like that's gonna happen here because I think our culture about drinking drink has always been such a subculture. It's always been in such a like you mentioned earlier. Like I'm gonna go all the way in hard drinking culture or separate from my family thing. Like
Yeah.
I call my wife, hey, I'm gonna swing by the bar, not the pub. I'm gonna swing by the bar that only serves liquor or beer, no food, which is horrible.
Which is, and I get why bars opened up. Like we had a whole prohibition thing.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have. Have you watched the documentary on prohibition, the Ken Burns one?
No, I have not. I
Okay.
have not.
I get it. It can be super boring.
But I know a lot about prohibition.
Yeah, but it can be super boring, but it fills in so many gaps. Because it starts so far before prohibition and then goes after prohibition.
Well,
But
the raging
so much-
20s and before that have filled into why people wanted the prohibition to happen.
Yeah, well, you had the teetotalers, and then you had even goes into the idea of what the saloon was, and the culture
What
around
was a brothel?
women,
Yeah.
and the violence against women that happened.
Yeah, that was a big problem. It's still a big problem for a long time in the United States afterwards.
Yes, but it goes into so much of the details behind it. after Prohibition, we have this whole idea that alcohol's still not good, and that we have to regulate it into these little tiny dark corners called a bar. And instead of going from a place where you could drink with your family and enjoy a meal with your family, and alcohol is really not even a second thought, to now, if you're going to drink, do it in this nice little separate pub that's dark and far away from people that don't, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that has done not more damage, but has not helped the reputation of places like this that I take my daughter to, because I feel like I could have my daughter here, order some food and
the
enjoy.
The beauty about craft beer right now, you got places like Turning Point, Old Collins Brewery, Martin House, even Legal Draft.
Yeah.
That it's a family-friendly place.
Yeah.
You know, where it's still a beer place, but it's a family-friendly place.
I will say this about Martin House. I never feel more old than when I walk into Martin House.
Well, it's such a frat party now. It's such a frat party now.
No, man. I won third place at a talent contest there like a year and a half ago, and I lost to a belly dancer. And I was like, this is a cool place. And I realized, like, I am not cool enough for this place. I would love to go back. Just not my wife has told me, like, look, I love Martin House and I love their beers and you bring them home anytime you want, but it's just not gonna be the place I'm gonna go to on a Sunday afternoon. I'm like, I get that.
It's tough. It's such a party because Martin House is so popular, and that's one of the most beautiful gems in Fort Worth.
Oh, you get that view out from Fort Worth from the river. Oh, that's great.
It's the thing about that's the problem why Martin. Not that the Martin House is the problem. It's just the culture in Fort Worth is the problem. Because you have these old-timey breweries over there, or the small bars that separate, and it's very boring beers. Then you have Martin House, the young hip place where all the young college from TCU go.
Okay, have you been to RAR recently?
Yeah.
Recently? Okay. I went there with my dad on a release day, and it was like 45 people deep.
It's always deep. Always deep.
I found out that they were doing a cask. And I was like, where's the cask at? No one in line for the cask. I don't think anybody knew what the cask was.
Well, no one knows what cask beer is.
That's right.
Which is delicious, by the way.
No, and I love it. And I was like, Dad, come with me. And we found this, I don't know how old he was, but he was manning the cask, no line at all. It was a vanilla bourbon Bach or something like that they had. Amazing. Loved it. And I was like, Dad, try it. You know, he loved it. And we were like,
well, I think anything in a cask is delicious.
Yes, I think cask is underserved, but there's a reason for that because it's so difficult to serve.
Yeah.
And so difficult.
You got to take your time to serve it because you got that whole little crank pump.
The whole crank, but also like, you know, you got to tap it. That it's not popping on a thing like this.
Like the main system is now. Yeah.
Yeah, but you get the guys that are like, no, I'm gonna tap the cask. There's plenty of videos of that from Cascade as well.
And people messing up.
Oh, dude, you want to go down a rabbit hole? Just do cask fail on YouTube. You'll have such a good time.
I'm gonna check that out. Link right there. Check that out. No, what I would say about like my favorite cask beer of all time, you would never guess where I got it. I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Okay.
It's a Earl Grey Ale.
Ooh, okay.
Earl Grey tea ale,
okay.
in a cask. That was by far Jacob from Strange Brew.
Yeah. I know.
That me and him, that's our favorite beer when we was out in New Mexico. One of our favorite beers. That was delicious. Super smooth. 5% beer.
Now how was the carbonation on it? Was it like super low?
It was right where it needed to be because it was an ale. So it wasn't too hoppy. It looked like it was like it was really uniformed light bubbles, and it was perfect. It wasn't too light. It wasn't too light. I felt like it was right on the money for an ale.
Gotcha. Because most casks normally come out at very low carbonation levels.
Yeah, but I think it's natural. But also the beer I think was naturally carbonated too, which will help with it. Because that's what you're supposed to do, right? Naturally have a natural carbonation reaction.
So with cask, it can be recarbonated in the cask itself. But in general, it is recarbonated in the cask, but in general, it's a very low carbonation.
Yeah.
That's why you'll see that little spout. It has like a little cross on it, and it spurts it out in 4 different ways. And that's to actually get some bubbles out of it and give it that smoother mouthfeel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to where my lack of knowledge comes from in beer. Because I always felt like when you want to do a cask beer, you also have to go down the natural carbonation route, where you naturally, as you're making the beer, should naturally be carbonated along the way.
Let me ask you this: what does naturally carbonated mean to you?
No, honestly, I just read it. Honestly, I never brewed before, but that's what I read.
Okay.
And
So naturally carbonated. So you have carbonation. There's forced, okay, and then
with the CO2, like
the
you have here,
CO2.
the
Yeah,
pressures
yeah.
up here.
So here at Turning Point, they'll have a giant CO2 canister. I mean, giant. It'll be taller than one of us.
Yeah.
And it is pushing carbonation CO2 into the keg. And then you regulate that through a little regulator, and they've probably got a bunch of them behind the wall up over there.
Yeah.
And then you can turn it up or down depending on the beer. So there are very fancy schmancy beer places like McKellar Bar. I don't know if you've ever been to one of the McKellar bars. If you get a chance, go to a McKellar Bar.
Okay.
They've got one in LA, San Francisco. I think they have one in Austin now, where each tap has its own little regulator that they dial in for each style of beer.
Okay.
And so for like a saison, something very effervescent, they'll turn it up so that they have a very finer, smaller bubble. Whereas something like an IPA, they'll turn it so that it has a little lower carbonation, but it has a larger bubble.
Okay.
And that gives that scrubbing feel. Cask, if it's a natural carbonation, that means they put the beer in, they've added a little bit of sugar into it, the yeast that's left over re-ferment that. Now, it's not a lot. It doesn't even add to the ABV. It just adds a little bit of bubbles. Now, a little bit of bubbles in the glass equals a lot of pressure on the keg itself.
Yeah.
So unless you have some type of mechanical switch to get into that cask, you're doing the tap. And that's why when you see those tap fails, you see the giant spray of beer coming out. So that's, yeah, so if it's a force card, which most casks are, most small casks aren't, then it's the natural version, the re-fermentation or recarb beer. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes it a lot easier than what I read. Because I knew it was something to do with the yeast, but I didn't know how they reactivated it.
Gotcha.
To do what they call natural carbonation.
So yeast take sugar and make alcohol and carbon dioxide. That's all it is. So beer is like a really happy home for yeast. And what do? They make carbon dioxide and alcohol. Yeah. Now the yeast also do a lot of fun things with the malt sugars that you give it. And so that's what gives us a lot of our flavors if you're not adding extra stuff. So like the peach scone uses peach puree and all these other fun things that give it that extra flavor.
Yeah.
Whereas a lager, all the flavors coming from the grains used, the hops, and then how the yeast eat all that stuff up. Yeah.
Okay.
And then piss it all out.
That's what we drink.
That's what we drink.
I know.
So
essentially.
Yeah, pretty much.
And this is the guy who runs the podcast says, I know nothing about beer.
I may have read a book here or there.
You know, I have a few beer books at the house that I'm like, I've read through.
What have you read?
This is the one main book you see everywhere, the one about judging beer and things like that. That has, it's hard, I can't remember the name for the life of me, but I have it on my Amazon order, what I ordered.
Okay.
But it's the main one I see everybody else talk about before. It's about a book about this thick, and it has all different styles.
Are you talking about the BJCP, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is a really cool reference. I'll say this, because I was thinking about this earlier. There's my favorite beer book of all time. It's called Tasting Beer by Randy Mosher.
Okay. I think I've seen that too on Amazon.
If you want like the best like beer 101 textbook that has a lot of pictures and isn't going to bore you out, seriously, it's the best book.
I was that kid who needed books in school. I need pictures.
You need pictures. Well,
yeah.
I love pictures. I'm much more of a visual learner than what I am a reading learner.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of podcasts at work, and I listen to a lot of lectures. And awesome. So Randy Mosher has this book called Tasting Beer, and it is my favorite reference when it comes to anything beer because he writes it in a way where it's, if you know nothing about beer, you start with the general history of what is beer, and then go into ingredients, and then go into styles.
Okay.
And so it really breaks it down to these nice little chunks that give you a better idea of what beer is and what beer can be. A lot of pictures, which I really need. because I learn
Same
better by
here.
seeing
I feel-
and hearing than by reading a book.
Same page. I learn better by doing.
Mhm.
I can do the job, or I can learn something by doing it. Then if it has like visual aid,
Yep.
that helps.
Yep.
Then the last is reading.
Yeah.
By far, the last is just
Yeah.
reading it. Which that's why I was with the other beer book. I'm like,
So if you want like the best reference on beer, there is the Oxford Companion to Beer by Garrett Oliver. Okay, that
why does that
book,
name sound familiar? Is that guy from Brooklyn Lager?
Brooklyn. Yeah, he is amazing, and
He did a video that's why I learned about bubbles. So it was like very uniform bubbles and things
oh
like
yeah,
that.
yeah. No, he is such a great teacher. But the Oxford Companion to Beer is 895 pages long. I thought, okay, let me try to read this. I got to beta amylase and stopped. And I get that beta amylase is a really important thing. I'm sure I'm not saying part of that right in hop oils, but it was such a dense. I didn't get to beer, okay, in the beer encyclopedia. Now it is a great reference, and I'll go back to it if I don't understand something, and go, oh, what does that mean? Oh, okay, and then I'll reference that. But Tasting Beer by Mosier, Randy Mosier, is the best overall beer book that I
Got
found.
it. I'm gonna get that because I saw that when I bought the book, and I bought that, and I was like, okay, I bought the reference and
Uh-huh.
grading beer
Yeah,
book first. And I forget what's the actual name? I forget.
BJCP.
BJCB.
Yeah.
And I bought a beer map at the same time on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought those two things, and then you sold that where you see it has a picture of a glass on top, I guess, or like different colors of beer on top of his thing. And I sold that. I was like, I'll get that next. I never went back to it. I never went back to get it.
And you know, I think that's the best and worst thing about Amazon is that you could have that little cart going on and it keep pop, 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 and like, oh wait, I did want to buy that. Yeah, oh yeah.
I forgot all about that.
I forgot about that book. Yeah. What was I drinking when I was making this list? I think so. I don't need that. No.
Well, 'cause when I bought the book, what I was trying to figure out is what I needed to figure out is I know nothing about beer, and I'm not really into beer itself. And now people get surprised when I say this. Beer is great, and I really love the craft beer scene, and I really love the beer people make.
Yep.
Because you can taste the passion.
Yep.
Now, sometimes certain styles are not for me, but if it's well made and well balanced, I always reference that it's great for the style, but it's not for me.
What is the style that's not for you?
Sours.
Okay.
Like Martin House Sour Fest is coming out tomorrow. That's not for me. Not at all. Not
Man,
at all.
I wish I could go to that. Let me tell you,
I
would
not.
be all over that.
But you know, I would if I had the opportunity and had the time, because I'm going to Craft and Growlers anniversary tomorrow.
Gotcha.
So if I had the time to actually do both, I would. But
Yeah.
it's hard to do both, and I don't want to drink and drive across town.
No, that's no good.
So I'm
No.
gonna stay in Dallas. I'm gonna support Craft and Growlers, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna make some videos there, and
Good.
then I'll just miss the sour
Yeah.
fest. But my thing is, even though I don't like sours, one thing I learned from my co-hosts and learned from everybody else, like you, just try it. Just
Yeah.
try it. You don't.
There's a style that I can't stand, but I always
Surprising.
order it anytime I see it. It's called Rauschbier. Have you ever
Rausch.
seen a Rauschbier?
No.
So it's a smoked beer. So what they do?
Yeah, I've heard of smoked beers. I don't like smoked beers.
Oh man, I have. There's several smoked beer. There's several breweries that have been making smoked beers for like 300 plus years. Okay. I can't think of the name right now. I could see the label in my head, and it looks like someone took like an old German scroll and like
wrote
wrote
it?
like witchcraft on it. Okay?
Like they do in the movies.
Yeah, it looks like that. Label looks like that. And anytime I see someone having a smoked beer on a list, or bar list, whatever, I always order a taster, because I always want to be able to go, I know what that is, and I want to be able to appreciate how they made it, because they're really difficult to make. Like lagers are really hard to make well, because they're so clean, and so anything that's off about them shines.
Yeah, that's why I always appreciate people who make a really good Pilsner.
Yeah.
Like if you make a really good Pilsner, it's not that it's the most difficult ingredients of all time. What makes it difficult is you got nowhere to go.
No.
If you fuck it up in the beginning or at the end, it's fucked up the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, so you have nowhere to go. So if you make it well, consistently well, that's a good beer.
Yeah.
It's a good brewer.
Yeah. Have you had the Pivot Pills from Firestone?
Yeah.
Firestone? Oh.
My two favorite Pilsners of all time. Number one is gonna be Nestle Evil from Manhattan Project.
And I haven't had that, and I need to get some of that in my life.
That is my
You are
favorite.
the second person, Mick from Craft Beer Chats.
Yeah.
Loves that beer.
That's a phenomenal Pilsner, Realization Pilsner. Now, my second favorite is only because it's from my country, Dominican Republic, is Presidente. It's a Pilsner made out there.
Gotcha.
Now, it's not great by any standards. I love it because it has so many fond memories, but
Yeah,
that's my second of all time.
I get that. I totally get that.
But it's nowhere to go. That's why I appreciate it. But when what I've learned from people who make beer, even though there's a lot of styles I'm not really fond of. I'm not a big fan of West Coast style IPAs, really hoppy upfront IPAs.
That's what I like. Like my beer,
Yeah.
I grew up on.
But
I mean, I'm
you're
from LA.
Yeah, from California,
You know?
so I get it.
Yeah.
I get it completely. But that's something that even though I don't appreciate, like the style for my palate, I can appreciate someone making it, especially when it's well made. So what I've done over the last 2 years is instead of just saying I don't like something, I drink it. And that's from all of my friends and everybody saying I have to drink it, have to try it at least.
Yeah.
And what I do is I appreciate people making good beer. Now, certain beers I'm like, okay, I can see that this is well made, like sours. Veritude makes really good, easy drinking sours. Not too super tart, acidic punch in your face.
Yeah.
And I like Veritude themselves, but that's not every style of sour maker.
Yeah.
You know, other sours are really harsh. Now, what I would always do is when I drink it, like you go somewhere and see it, I'm gonna order all the beers, especially beers I don't like, try it, and if it's well made, I will appreciate it being well made.
And then give it to your buddy that likes sours.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't like that. I mean, it's great, but you can have that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. Yeah.
But that's one of my things that my number one advice I give for people trying to get into craft beer, for me, is just to try it. Whatever you don't like, just keep trying it.
Just try it.
If you go to a new brewery, what's my biggest pet peeves? Because I was that guy. When you go to a new place, I love stouts. That's all I really love. Stouts, lagers. Clean lagers, or heavy stouts. That's all I like.
Gotcha.
So if I go to a bar like here, if I see a stout on the menu, that's the first thing I'm ordering. And that's how it was for a long time.
Let me ask you this. Do you like defined taste? It is a this.
Yes.
Okay.
I really pinpoint to, like, it's hard for me to say, like I used to say I hate the word velvety, but it really,
No, that works. Yeah.
it does work, but I hate the word. I hated it for a long time, and I still hate saying it. Like, it irks me.
No. Why?
Because it just sounds weird. It sounds weird and pretentious, but a velvety stout, a heavy mouthfeel that coats your tongue is what I appreciate about stouts.
So let me separate velvety and heavy, okay? Because heavy is just how much stuff is in there that you're literally feeling on your tongue. Velvety is, I think it has more to do with the carbonation level and what ingredients are in there that give you that mouthfeel. So velvety is more like viscosity.
Gotcha.
How slick something is.
Okay.
You know cars, you know viscosity.
Yeah. Well, I don't like it being too syrupy. Like there's certain sweet stouts that come out now that's too syrupy.
That's a
Not
different
for me.
viscosity.
Yeah, it's not for me. It's too heavy.
So heavy is the mouthfeel. Viscosity
Is the
is the velvety to oily.
Gotcha.
You know?
So I don't like the oil style. Like
You don't like crude.
No.
You're like, give me some of that 5W.
No, I don't need that in my tongue. No. But I went from just drinking always that to, you know what, I don't like IPAs. Finally being broken down because I've drank so many decent IPAs from home brewers to going to different breweries and getting into the culture.
Yep.
You know, shout out to California. A bunch of West Coast style IPAs I got from like with you or at the bottle shows we've been to. There's so many West Coast style IPAs that in the beginning when I, like a year and a half ago, when we were going out, that I was like, you know what? Even though I don't like the little sample I got, it's well made and it tastes good, but it's not my style I would ever buy.
Yeah. No, I get that.
But and that's what made me appreciate it. That, you know what? When you go to a new place, a new brewery, they have a bunch of variety of beers. There's some that you gravitate to, some you don't gravitate to. Order both. Because you already know what you like about this style.
Have you been to Russian River yet?
No.
I did a beer pilgrimage with a buddy of mine to San Francisco and the Russian River area.
Okay.
And I love beer. I'll say this: my wife's poisons of choice are probably wine, cocktails, and then beer.
Gotcha.
Mine are probably beer, and then whiskey, bourbon, and then cocktails and wine. Depends on the day. But so we did a trip to San Francisco and Russian River, and we hit up Russian River Brewing Company, and their flight is 18 beers.
That's a flight.
That's a flight.
That's a flight right there.
Man, let me tell you, I am so glad for Uber. And me and my buddy split the 18 pours, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
Man,
What you used to do before Uber? Just drive.
Rock, paper, scissors,
Yeah.
and hope you win.
I got one DWI in my life, and it's the most upsetting of it because my DWI, I was asleep on the side of
the side of the road.
Yeah, because I'm like, you know what? I was drinking. Yes, I was drinking. I'm not gonna deny that, but I was more sleepy. Because my friend got a promotion, we went out and had a few drinks.
Yeah.
And I'm driving home like, I'm too sleepy. I'm gonna sleep an hour. Boom.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, I got the DWI for doing the right thing but not driving. I got it, pissed off. But that was like 6 years ago. And I know Uber was around, but it wasn't as popular, and I didn't hear about it until years later.
Yeah.
Fucking.
To me, I'm a huge fan of Uber, and it's one of the things I now factor into my cost of drinking. Like, I've had a little bit of a 13%, and then I've had a pint of a 5%. So that is like I'm going to drink water now and enjoy water until my wife and I get an Uber for our date tonight.
Yeah.
And then
that's right, you got a date today. I was like, no, we drink more. You
no,
oh
dude,
I'm going, have a date.
I'm going out. We're going to I think we're going to go to Proper tonight. And I'm gonna have me a couple of very fun mixed drinks. They make a good mixed drink there.
Well, see, for me, when you were telling about what you and your wife like order operation, my order operation is always this: fruity drinks all the time. Number one, the fruitier the better. That's
Tell me, I'd love to see you with an appletini and your pinky out.
I may have not done an appletini, but anything that will have fruit garnish on top, I'm there. I'm in it.
You're like, give me that hurricane. Give me all the pineapple with the maraschino cherries.
I love all that stuff. I go ham on that stuff. But I also do a rum and coke or whiskey coke or just whiskey straight up. I can do that too. But for me, always is mixed drinks. The fruitier the better. Then I go down to beer. Beer overset whiskey and bourbon for me. Because I do really appreciate a well-made beer.
Yeah.
And I can find fruity beer.
You can find fruity beers,
now,
which is I mean, that's like best of both worlds for you starting off. You're like, I got the peach scone, dude. I'm ready for tonight.
I'm so good. Like, I can find fruity beer, especially if I'm going brewery checking out. Somewhere along the way, someone's gonna make a fruity drink.
Especially now, like someone's gonna have some fruit in a beer on tap.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why beer's overtaking like stouts and sours for me. But then I go. I'm not stouts and sours. I mean, whiskey and bourbon. Yeah. You can tell I've been drinking. But I really, really appreciate that. But that's my tip for people: just try it. Even though it's something you don't like, just try it.
Yeah, no, I'm in full support of that because it literally is one of those things where you don't know what you do and don't like till you try it.
Yeah. Exactly. But there's certain. Like, I would never say I like IPAs until I met New England style IPAs. Mm-hmm. Now, that version of IPA is controversial in its own right.
Well, I think that here's my thought on New England IPAs is that because they focus so much on the fruity side, like you were saying, of the beer.
Yeah, but that's not Boston. Boston doesn't really do a lot of that.
No. But if you take a look at the flavor profiles of East Coast style IPAs, okay. They focus much more on the. Okay, let me get a little stupid in my descriptions. Okay.
No, because I do it all the time.
If you take an orange, and you take the meat, the pith, and the skin, okay. A West Coast style IPA will focus much more on the skin and the pith, meaning there's bitterness there, and you get the essence, but you don't. The idea is not to eat an orange, whereas East Coast style IPAs love to focus on that orangey flavor.
Eat the orange.
Eat the orange. Yeah. It's literally I will have orange juice in a glass. I remember one of my favorite posts I've seen was I was going to order this beer, but then I thought I'd save money and just order a glass of orange juice. And
That's a good meme.
Yeah. And I totally get that. That's East Coast style IPAs. They focus more on the flavor of the fruitiness that can come out of the hops.
Yeah.
Not that it's not a hoppy beer. It's still a very hoppy beer, but they're trying to pull out the characteristics of that hop that are the fruitier flavors. Turning Point makes some amazing East Coast style, but their beers also taste much more pineapple, mango, the meat of the orange, the meat of a mango, not the skin or the pith.
Yeah.
Whereas a West Coast style IPA will go much more towards the citrus, but citrus in that citrus oil, the citrus that is still bitter.
The essence of it, but not actually eating
Think
it.
of like orange oil of than an orange itself. And so I think that's why I'm very happy for East Coast style IPAs, because they've made IPAs more approachable and have widened the field of what an IPA can mean.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's people on the West Coast that are like, F you, Allan, right now. And I
Well,
get that.
But you hear it all, you see it. Like, for me, I try to get into I run the social media page. I am the social media page for Dallas Beer Talk. So I always try to get into other social media pages and try to interact and be involved in not just the DFW community, but external community, the nationwide part of it. And I start seeing debates about New England style IPAs. Like, that's not a real IPA. I'm like, wait, I thought, okay, I get the argument, but it's a new style.
So I'll say this: there is I can't wait till someone writes a really fun academic paper on the generations of IPA. I know that's coming at some point in time.
If it's not out now, it's coming out.
It's going to be coming out, because I feel like you've started drinking beer, like I'll say seriously drinking beer, in the last 5 years.
2 years.
2 years, okay. So I'll say the people that are 5 years and under in discovering craft beer, craft ales, IPAs, have now had more experiences with New England IPA, and that the IPA has a broader range of meaning than what someone that like myself, that has been drinking craft beer for like 12 years plus. Now, the people that have been drinking beer 20 years plus are like, what are you guys doing? Like, all of you guys are just like way out of, like, that's not an IPA. I think that as people figure out more what to do with the hop and more what to do with malt and how to experiment with the beer and with the body and the complexity of a beer, whether that be through bringing out the hazy features, bringing out the malty features, bringing out the fruity features or the piney features, I think it's only going to widen the field and make it more available to consumers. Now,
true.
And Garrett Oliver, I love how he put this. He said that New England IPAs, hazy IPAs, are the Instagram beer. Because if you were to hold this up, a beer like this up in 1999, you couldn't tell if this was a lager or an IPA. So I think that's also part of it, is that as beer has changed and as social media has impacted our life, beer drinkers have brought that into social media.
Well, that's true, because you know what? Honestly, the funny thing about me being so new to beer, what I really don't like is the slushy beer trend that's going on right now. I really don't like that. A, because you're charging me $15 for what? No. Second of all,
I've not had a $15 slushy beer then.
Well, it's not just when you go to the tap room and buy one.
Okay.
It's more of when you buy like the 2-pack or the 4-pack.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when it's a 2-pack. Like,
I ain't buying a 2-pack.
No, $15, and I get it that it's expensive to make.
Yes, and I'm never going to argue with the price of a brewery's beer, because I know, especially after brewing, I know that there's a lot of cost involved. Especially the more hops, the more cost.
No, what I will argue is you're making a bad beer that's making you cost a lot of money to make it, because you try to be gimmicky. Now that's your fault. That's your fault. Now, I would never be like, the perfect person that I had this conversation with was Gavin from Three Nations.
Yeah.
Because he says a lot of his, like, people like, oh, I want you to make that beer year round. He's like, well, that beer cost me X amount, and I sell it for cost. I don't even make money from the beer. I make it just to have the name out, you know?
To have that beer on tap so that people can,
for a season, for a season, and that makes it like appealing for people to come to the brewery, and that I get. That will never be mad at that, because you make a really good beer that people want.
Yeah.
And you may not make no money from that beer because you're selling it at cost, because it's already so expensive to sell. That I get. Now, the slushy beer is where I have a problem with, because some of the prices are very inconsistent. Some people sell it for cost. Some people sell it for a little bit more than cost, and then you got the retail on people trying to make money off of it too. It's already expensive.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and I think that's the thing that that's definitely been something that shocked me because I'm used to buying a 6-pack of West Coast IPAs for maybe $12, you know. Whereas now I come here and you get a 4-pack for not $12.
No.
Other IPAs, and and like I said, I understand that, and I understand why it costs so much because, especially after I've made my own IPAs, my buddies and I, way back when, we decided to make a Pliny clone, and you've had Pliny.
Yeah.
And I think, and we decided to just go overboard with the hops. I think it was a 5-gallon beer that cost us $90 in hops.
God damn.
Yeah.
That's not that much. Even though 5 gallons is a lot for you and your friends, it's not a lot for a brewery.
No. But the thing is, it's dry hopped, and let me ask a very simple question. You know what dry hop?
I learned that from Oak Islands.
Make sure.
I had a whole podcast with them about that.
Okay, yeah. So those hops, we did whole leaf as well.
Oh, so yeah, you got more bang for your buck.
Well, no. The thing about whole leaf is that it soaks up the beer, and so we ended up with only 3.5 gallons.
I didn't think about that.
After all the hops were added.
I didn't think about that.
And we were like, well, this is the most expensive beer we're ever making. And I'm glad I split it between 3 people because I especially now, I can't go, hey babe, let me throw $90 at a hoppy IPA. I'm only going to get 3 gallons out of it. Yeah.
Don't worry about it. You may get 2 cans for you. No, I get it 100%. No, so I get it when it comes to cost. And then as I've been doing it the podcast longer, and I'm becoming friends with some brewers.
Yeah.
And some like taproom owners. I'll be not friends, some friendlier with.
Yeah.
I understand there's cost involved with this stuff,
Yeah.
and I 100% get it. I'm willing to spend the money. Like, give me a 4-pack of a good beer that's $18. I have no problem spending that money. Now, let's get to the price of $25. If that ever comes, it's not there yet. I'm not saying it's there, but let's say,
I get you.
But if we get to that price range, I might have to be like, I don't know about this, guys.
Yeah, no, I understand. Hold on, I just got to.
No, go ahead.
Okay, good. It's just an Instagram something. I don't care. If someone Instagram something. My wife has my kids right now, and so I'm like, okay, let me make sure that it's not my wife.
So part of my podcast and setup, the reason why I have such a mobile setup is because I want to make whatever time works best for you, whatever location works best for you, and whatever schedule we could do. You know, that's how I set this podcast up.
You know, I'm going to say this. I want to make one of these days, I want you to come to my house and record.
Yeah.
Because I love hosting. I love having people over. I've done bottle shares at my house as well. But the thing I love to do as well, do some grilling, get some beer going.
See, I miss me and my old roommate. We used to grill all the time.
Yeah.
Shout out to Diego. We used to slow cook and smoke meat all the time. We were even going to like splitting the cost of having an egg.
Yeah.
And having it at the house because
those are pricey.
I know, I guess that's why we're gonna split it.
Yeah, you can split it. Yeah.
But that's why we cooked so much. We're gonna think about splitting it because our work schedule worked perfectly too. We work opposite schedules. So I'm at work at 4 in the morning. I'm home by 12. He goes to work at 1 in the afternoon. So we can start.
One of you could start it. One of you could finish it. The next day, be like, hey, there's
the food for the whole week.
Yeah.
So, but we never went down that route.
See, and I built a fire pit in my backyard.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I've got it set up, and in the summertime I start grilling, and my neighbors like it because the neighbor next door, or on the other side of the fence, anytime I'm grilling, I could see him kind of come out and around, and I always give him a little bit of something, whatever I'm grilling. And man, he's fixed my fence. He's done so much for me. So
it's beautiful when you have good neighbors like that.
Oh man, I love it. Yeah.
I bet he's talking about saying like, yo, my neighbor could grill next door.
Well, and my stepfather-in-law, he has a house out in Abilene, and he has some property somewhere out there. Oh, it's dead. There we go.
All right, here we go.
There we go.
So we were talking about grilling. But,
yes.
We had a small conversation about my advice for people getting into craft beer. What I would be more interested in, what is your advice for someone to get into craft beer? What would be like the number one tip or a few tips to give them while they're getting started into drinking beer?
So if they want to get started, first find the nearest brewery to them and start frequenting that. And whenever you're up at the bar, especially go at times when it's slower. And if you could sit at the bar, all the better. And then literally just ask the beer tender, whoever's behind, ask them about the beer.
Okay.
You know, I've poured before. I've been behind the bar several times. And as someone that's poured, as someone that has worked in beer professionally, I've never minded someone coming to me and saying, "Look, I know this sounds stupid.
Yeah.
What does it mean when it says this?" And if I have the time, I can't wait to explain that to them. Or why is this beer so expensive? Well, let me tell you, because it's been aged in bourbon barrels. It's had this. It's had this. It's had this. And no good beer tender is ever going to make you feel stupid. If they do,
yeah, they're a horrible
that is
person.
not the place to be. And just screw that place. Go to the next one.
I agree with that 100%. Every beer person I've met since I've started drinking beer the last 2 years, A, super wealth of information, B, willing to teach, and C, enjoy teaching. Like, people like explaining, like, this is why I like this style beer because this is the hop that's in it.
Yeah.
Or this is what they've done to it and this is why I prefer this.
Yeah.
You know?
If not a brewery, find the local craft beer bar that that has either the most amount of taps or the most amount of craft beer taps. And let me qualify craft beer taps. Not that it has 100 taps, but that it has maybe, taps that aren't all just associated, or taps that are not just, now this is my own mind thinking about like all from one distributor, but taps that are mainly, that have a emphasis on craft beers that you see either in that little craft beer aisle at your favorite, like Kroger or Ralph's or whatever it is. Or have names that you don't recognize yet, especially if you're just getting into craft beer. If you're just getting into craft beer, you don't recognize a lot of the names, great place to start, because then you get a flight and go, what's that, what's that, what's that? Give it to me. You're going to find beers that you love, you're going to find beers that you hate. And that is part of the process. Have fun doing that.
I agree with that 1,000%. That's really good advice. Really good advice. Because for me, lucky for me, I went to Lone Star Tap and Caps and Craft and Growlers.
Yeah. No, if you're in the DFW area, Lone Star is a great place to start off. I worked there for a little while.
Yeah, the Fort Worth one?
No, at the Louisville one.
No way. Okay, yeah.
I did. Guys. I was behind the bar, and then I worked at the Taps and Caps, the bottle place. Okay, so.
Oh, you was talking about the beverage.
So,
with, is his dad's name Sam?
Yeah, Sam. Yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah. I mean, Taps and Caps, I really love those guys. They've treated me well, and I easily and openly recommend anybody getting to any of their locations.
I 100% agree. That's why I went to Raw recently, because I went to go support their beer release at Raw.
Yeah. They just had that collaboration.
Yeah. So I went to go support them. Made a quick video vid for them, for Luck, for Raw, and mostly for Taps and Caps.
Yeah.
It was a fun video. But yeah, I love those guys. Anything I can do to support Rick and the whole Taps and Cap community.
Rick is also one of those guys that if you are in the DFW area and you get a chance to sit and talk with Rick, pick his brain. Because he knows everybody. He knows anything that is coming out. And his shops are a great example of how it's like example of good craft beer shop.
Yeah. What I don't like about Taps and Caps is that there's a rivalry between Craft and Growlers and Taps and Caps, and I don't like that because I love both those guys. I love Robert at Craft and Growlers. That's like a really, really sweet and help me out guy, and they always be willing to help us out too.
See, that's the sound of a brewery.
Yeah. Dropping things.
So there's something that was expensive something. That's why everybody stopped.
It got quiet real quick. Craft Growlers has always helped us out by giving us a room to record when we left the studio process and try to figure out what we're going to do. So they always help us out, so I love those guys. And freaking Taps and Caps and Rick and Roman, everybody over there.
Yeah.
They're essentially why I fell in love with the beer culture.
Yeah.
Because
I get that.
I've done private bottle shows with them up there. They've been on a podcast. I've been at all their events. Like, they're part of the reason why I met Sean and Jerry, and then led me to me and you. So I love them a lot because they led me to learning the culture of DFW and made me fall in love with it.
Well, speaking of Jerry, He's going to be on my. I did an interview with him, and his podcast episode is coming out
This Sunday.
this Sunday.
I'm super excited about that.
I am very excited about that.
Jerry's
as well.
excited about that too.
Man, I've just got to say, I think Jerry NTX_beer is the nicest guy in the DFW beer scene.
I gave him a title. So a podcast coming out for me on Monday.
Oh,
Right after yours is with Les, the bartender at Craft and Growlers.
Gotcha.
Phenomenal, funny guy. Also a local comedian.
yeah.
But we dubbed the name for Jerry the ambassador of North Texas beer.
So yes, I can totally see that.
So
Love it.
that video is dropping. The podcast is dropping Monday, and that Thursday I'm dropping a video that me and Jerry.
It's like the week of Jerry.
Yeah, the week of Jerry. Because that Thursday, me and Jerry went to Legal Draft. We had a private
saw
event.
that, yeah.
Legal Draft, and that video's dropping on Thursday.
Okay, good.
So
Yeah. Shout out to Jerry. I'm sorry, Jerry. I get to see his face right now, smiling and just going, I don't want this. Okay,
No,
okay.
of all the people, like, there's no knock to anybody else. There's no knock to
No.
Jennifer to be the lady or Sean. Or,
Yeah.
I love all those people.
Yeah.
And they also good representation of North Texas beer.
Yeah.
I think Jerry's the ambassador.
I can totally see that.
I think Jerry's the ambassador. Because if you could meet only one person in North Texas,
He would be a really good.
he'd be the number one person I recommend.
Yeah.
And he's the most welcoming person. On that beautiful note, what I want to say is this. Follow I Know Nothing About Beer on all platforms.
So it's Al the Brewer.
Oh, Al the Brewer on all
Al
platforms.
the Brewer on all platforms,
Gotcha.
or I know nothing about beer.com.
Oh, plug nothingaboutbeer.com right here.
Yep.
Check that out. Also, Al the Brewer on Instagram.
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all those other fun places.
Beautiful. And then check out the podcast. I'm telling you, I haven't listened to the last one dropped last weekend, but my favorite ones to this date is California versus Texas. It's a very interesting conversation.
I enjoyed recording that, and what I'm hoping to do with the podcast is have some the I don't know anything about beer, or I know nothing about beer is the main. We'll say the main part of the podcast. That's going to be the main section of the podcast, and then I'm breaking it down to 3 other little smaller segments.
Okay.
So I kind of call it my barstool chats, but I think someone else has that name, so I don't want to fully use that just yet. But that's where I go into, and that was the California versus Texas.
Yeah.
That's where I go into one subject for about 10 minutes, and I dive deep into it for 10 minutes.
What I like about George is the complete opposite of my podcast, is because I'm just hanging out talking. So there's no real structure to it. But to your podcast, there's a beautiful structure to it, similar to another podcast called Grapes and Grains.
Yes, I love Grapes and Grains.
Yeah, we talked
so
about it
glad
before.
season 2 is
came
back.
out.
Yes.
Yeah. So shout out to
Well,
TV.
one of you please come on my podcast. I would love to interview both of you. One of you, who I just.
Teeny, I'll tag him.
Yeah.
I'll make a clip of this and tag him in
Please,
this.
I want you on my podcast. I have so many questions.
Yeah, no, they do a beautiful podcast. One of my favorites. I did a podcast with Teeny.
I know,
last
and
year.
I watched that. I was like, I want them on my podcast.
I already met Teeny, but the other girl sounds equally as wonderful. I have not met her, but I love their podcast. But it's such beautiful structure where it makes me appreciate that. You know, I know it's the opposite of what I like to do because I can't structure myself. I feel too robotic. I can't have a list. I've done it before in the older podcasts where I have notes and
you have notes
and
you're
time
looking at?
frames. And no, it does not work. If it
I
stresses
get that.
me out too much.
You're just like, no, it's too much.
Well, it makes me too stressed. I'm like, oh, that's 10 minutes, guys. Wrap that conversation up. Next one.
See, and and in a former life, I was a teacher. So to me, I love having structured notes out where, and then again, former life, I've done ministry, where I've been a youth minister.
So you have bulletins and you have time.
I know how to give a sermon. I know how to do all those things. And so to me, like points on a notepad, I'm like, oh no, this is second nature. I'm good to go.
See, my entire life, I've always been a speechwriter or a debater. So I have bulletins and I just go on tangents. Now, I don't have time for my tangent unless you cut me off.
Gotcha.
But when I'm having a timer in my hand, I'm like, okay, we're going 15 minutes.
Because I got my stuff I got to get out right now.
Yeah.
So the other parts to the thing are going to be the Barstool Talks, where I go deep into one subject. And then I've got another one called Dad into Beer, where
that is awesome.
I talk about, and I've got an interview lined up, hopefully coming up later this summer, where it's going to be what I think it means to be a dad that's into beer, because I think that there's conversations I have there. I think that not that moms don't play a special role, they do. I think
1,000%.
I think that there's
but it's two different roles. You got a dad in beer and mom in beer.
I think that a lot of the portrayal of alcohol is, especially with beer, leans towards the dad. And I think there's conversation to have there about how do you talk about alcohol, how do you show alcohol in your house. Not that there's one right way,
Yeah.
but I'd love to talk to other dads that how do you do it at your house? How do you explain alcohol at your house? How do you do all that? Rachel, thank you so very much. Rachel, so very awesome here.
Yeah. But can I make 2 recommendations?
Please.
You don't have to have these people on the podcast, but I think Robert, it'd be a perfect example because Robert from Craft and Growlers just had a second son. He's the tap room manager at Craft and Growlers.
Okay.
His wife he drinks, but he's more around beer. I think it'd be a good introspective of how they handle it.
I would love, Robert, I want you on the podcast.
Because he does a page with his son, A Boy and a Beer.
Boy and a Beer,
Boy and a Beer, that's him and his son.
Gotcha, okay, I'll check that out.
Another one will be Instagrammer named Cool Tony D.
I went after your episode. I just said I want you on my podcast. He's like yes, and I'm like I'm going to get to you a little later.
Cool, because he's a family man as well.
Yes, and I heard that as well. So I think there's stuff to explore there.
Yeah.
And then the last part, I'm still working on the name, but I think I'm going to call it Faith Meets Mug. So the whole start to me doing this podcast was about 4 years ago, and I had this idea about where faith and beer meet, and I don't think a lot of people naturally see that, but I think that as a Christian, as someone that has one foot in each, there's conversations to have there. I think that alcohol itself has a long history in Christian tradition.
It has a long history in the church.
It does. But I think that especially with how beer has changed in America, how religion has changed in America, I think there's things to talk about there. So that's the other segment that I want to explore. So yeah.
No, I have people I recommend for that too. But I don't want to keep you here any longer. What I would say is anybody I can connect you with, I can do my part to help connect you, I would gladly do that. There's so many good beer people in the DFW area.
There really are, and I love that.
I want you to talk to everybody. I want to talk to everybody. So anybody watching this, please come either my podcast, especially come onto Allan's podcast.
Please. I know nothing about beer. Anybody, I mean, literally, I have so many people that I want to have on. And I'm just looking forward to season 1's probably going to wrap up in a couple weeks. And then season 2, I'll start interviewing in July, August, and then get fall. Season 2 will probably come out.
I can't wait for season 2. I'm enjoying season 1. I can't wait for Jerry's podcast. On that note, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Follow Allan, all social media in the description. Also, check out his podcast. Please check out his podcast. Follow, subscribe, listen to his podcast. It's worth a listen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Have a safe week. Peace.
Cheers.